You're watching The Legal Breakdown. So Glenn, we've got some news as it relates to Donald Trump's impending sentencing in New York. Can you explain what just happened here?
Yeah, Brian, I hope our viewers are sitting down. Donald Trump doesn't want to be sentenced in his criminal case on September 18th. Shocking, I know, that he is seeking more delay. This time, he is seeking a delay from Judge Juan Merchan, the presiding judge, expressly until after the presidential election, which is kind of a tell, right? He wants to get through this election unsentenced so he can try to kill all of his cases, federal and state, in the very unlikely event he is elected president again. So here's what he's done. Donald Trump's lawyers have sent a letter to Judge Merchan saying a couple of things. One, they say, we really want you to kick the sentencing until after the election. And here is one of the reasons they give, Brian. They say it is to, quote, prospectively mitigate the asserted conflict of appearance and impropriety, which are subject to ongoing congressional inquiries. Boy, that is a loaded sentence for a couple of reasons. One, our viewers might recall that yesterday, Judge Merchan denied Trump's third motion to kick him off the case, a motion to recuse, claiming there were conflicts and improprieties. And Judge Merchan made clear in his order, there are zero conflicts, zero improprieties, and you've offered nothing new, the same old rehash of what you put in the first two motions. So I have to believe when Judge Merchan sees this letter to the court, he is going to blow his top, probably very privately, and then respond publicly in a very thoughtful and circumspect way. But I'll tell you, when you talk about vexatious litigant, when you repeatedly make the same, baseless accusations over and over again, and Judge Merchan in yesterday's order said these are baseless accusations and mischaracterizations, judges tend to get really tired of your shtick. And let's see how Judge Merchan responds. The other piece of that sentence that I think is concerning, they cite congressional inquiries. What is that doing? It sounds like, he doesn't come right out and say it, but it sounds like Trump is pointing to Jim Jordan's abuse of congressional process, the weaponization of government committee, which has incessantly tried to insert itself in state court prosecutions where it has no business inserting, its congressional nose. And that all feels very obstruction-y to me. But Donald Trump uses that as yet another reason he offers to Judge Merchan why he shouldn't be forced to go to sentencing. He also says in the letter, hey, Tim Walz, quote, wrongly referred to this case in a speech without explaining why. Okay, that falls under the weight of its own frivolity because nothing Tim Walz said was wrong. In fact, it was all accurate. We've heard him talk about this on the campaign trail. Here is one of the things that's buried in the middle of the letter, and I think it's what is really irking Donald Trump. He said, and Judge, please, 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 don't let DA Bragg, don't let the prosecutors file a public sentencing memo. Why is he scared of that? Because I can tell you, having authored countless sentencing memos in anticipation of a sentencing date, I put all of the defendant's misconduct in there. Everything that I could find that was reliable, accurate information about the defendant's misconduct, prior crimes, prior arrests, other prosecutions. And the last thing Donald Trump wants spewed out into the public square is that kind of a public document, because we may actually learn a thing or two about some misconduct by Donald Trump that we, as of yet, don't know anything about. At its core, what Donald Trump is desperately trying to avoid on September 18th is being sentenced to prison. The final thing, and this is where they end their letter to Judge Merchan, which is a pretty despicable thing to say. They say, I'm going to paraphrase, Judge, if you proceed to sentencing, if you rush to sentencing on September 18th, it will basically simply be election interference. That's rich. Pot, meat, kettle, because Donald Trump was convicted of crimes that were motivated by his attempt to interfere in the 2016 presidential election. I predict this plea to kick his sentencing until after the election on November 5th will ultimately fail, and fail spectacularly with Judge Merchan.
We spoke in our last episode after Donald Trump's lawyers' last attempts to have the case delayed. We spoke about the prospect of Donald Trump being prevented from filing more motions because he would be perceived as being a vexatious litigant. And you just brought that up here. Would this attempt, this motion being put forward, as frivolous as it is, be some rationale for Judge Merchan to prevent Donald Trump and his team from putting forward any more motions moving forward?
You know, he might say no more motions on this issue. It's been resolved. This will be the fourth time. But you know what? They sprinkle in a bunch of other stuff. For example, they say, you know, and Judge, we've got this presidential immunity ruling from the Supreme Court, which even Jack Smith had to ask for 3 weeks to continue to hash out what the federal prosecution is going to, you know, say about this new Supreme Court precedent. So surely the state DAs need much more time to hash it out. And then he drops a snarky comment about how they're not even that well versed in federal practice. You know, a little bit of a snide comment. So here is the one thing that I want to share with our viewers, because we have to deliver the news when it's good and when it's bad. You know, the one thing that he puts in there that I think may get some traction is Trump's lawyers say, now listen, immunity decisions by a court are typically immediately appealable. And once you make the decision that my prosecution was good and it didn't violate this new Supreme Court precedent, and you proceed to sentencing, that's going to vest in me an immediate right to appeal it. That's an open question, but that very well may win the day on the procedural front. So Judge Merchan could say, I'm going to deny your motion, I'm going to sentence you on September 18th, but I will stay execution of your sentence. In other words, your sentence will not begin to run until you go ahead and exhaust the appeals process. So, you know what? The gods of justice giveth, and the gods of justice taketh away.
Right. Well, this all underscores the point that you and I have been making all along, which is that at the end of the day, we cannot just look at the courts solely as a way to hold Donald Trump accountable. The final jury in this case is going to be all of us when we have the opportunity to go out to the polls and actually cast our ballots. One last question here, Glenn, and then we'll finish off. This idea that that this whole thing is being weaponized against Donald Trump by virtue of an ongoing congressional inquiry, isn't this just a self-fulfilling prophecy? Because it was Donald Trump who pushed Jim Jordan and these Republicans to create this committee and then pointed to the thing that he's responsible for creating as a rationale for him not to face accountability?
Yes, of course. He asks them in substance, I maintain, to, you know, gin up this bogus congressional inquiry, basically, you know, give me some cover, put another way, help obstruct my case, and then I'm going to scream that, oh, nothing can happen because of this congressional inquiry.
Right.
You're precisely right. You know, this is Donald Trump using everything as both a shield and a sword.
Right, right. Okay, well, we will obviously stay on top of this issue as it continues to play itself out. For those watching right now, 2 quick requests. Glenn is fast approaching 1 million subscribers, so if you're not yet subscribed to his channel, please do us a favor, help support the Legal Breakdown community, and go ahead and hit the subscribe button for Glenn. Also, my new book, Shameless, is now out for sale, so if you'd like to support my work, help support this Legal Breakdown series, that is a great way to do it. I'll put the link right here on this screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching the Legal Breakdown.